Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Batwoman. A great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Stuff that came up in this episode kind of hints that obviously this season, the premiere is taking place only a couple days. Because at first, Tommy parading around as Bruce pops up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, because at first he's like, oh, hey, and looks like Bruce. I'm like, he hasn't showed up this entire time, because I was curious like how much time frame had passed. But Julia and Sophie were having a conversation, and it's like, oh, basically what went down a couple of days ago. So it's like, okay, so it's only been like a couple of days since season one's finale. We find out like the circumstances around why the whole Kate situation. She was on a plane to National City to see Kara because she wanted to know if there was going to be a way to destroy Kryptonite. But on her way back, her plane crashed. And obviously this is where the two worlds collide as we get introduced to Ryan and kind of find out about her situation, which is, it's really sad when you break it down. She's on parole. She went to jail for like 18 months because of some drugs that were found on her. But she was like, the crows planted on her, which we know the crows are, at least, we've showcased, it's been showcased on the show that the crows, obviously there's some, there were some foxes amongst the sheep, I guess you could, wolves amongst the sheep, I guess is the more apt description. So, it's not like we're not aware that, to be fair, it's also Gotham, so corruption's kind of Gotham's thing, so it's really tragic, hearing that aspect about her character, because I think I'd heard a little bit before they, I think, really worked out what the character was going to be. And it's kind of along those lines, but they kind of changed it a little bit, kind of flushed it out a little bit more than some of the initial things about who Ryan was going to be. Like, obviously they had known even before, things that even got it started, that they had, what Ryan's character was going to be and everything. But, also her, cutting, we learn obviously she has that tragedy in her life of her mom, or as we later on learn, her adopted mom died, and we didn't know the circumstances about it, but we do obviously learn later on. And obviously that hero thing of taking a tragedy and letting it be your strength to do good. But obviously for her main motivation was revenge. I thought it was an interesting development when it's revealed it was actually Alice's gang that actually killed her mom and the dude who ran the place and stuff like that. I thought that was so interesting because I didn't expect it, because it's once again, it's Gotham. So you were just terrible, also, because I was about to say, the Wayne's murder is just kind of a random thing, depending on the continuity. Sometimes they add layers to the murder. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So I was wondering, I think either way, it could have worked either way, because it's Gotham. So, it's just a terrible tragedy of and sadly, it's not just a Gotham thing. It's a world thing anyway. But also, it being Alice adds an extra layer to it, considering, what did Kate always try to do? Save Alice, and for her to be responsible for so many... there's so many people that died because of Alice, despite everything Kate would try and save her. Obviously, there's points where she gave up on her, but didn't completely give up on her. But I just thought it was interesting. Obviously, Ryan had found the suit and saw this as an opportunity. She had even talked to her parole officer about, but her parole officer, it's wait, so you haven't found housing, you haven't found a job, saying that it's within your power. But for her, it's don't tell me it's in my power, because basically the system's stacked against me. I'm a felon, so no one's going to give me a job. The only reason why I became a felon is because I got caught with some drugs on me that wasn't me. It was the crows that framed me, but no one's going to believe me about it. No one's going to, she almost, I think she was even saying, people know that's possible, the crows being dirty, but no one believed me, and it doesn't change my situation. For her, it's you say that it's in my power to do it, but no, I feel powerless with everything that went down in her life, even the situation with her mom. But for her, this was the first time I got the suit, I can do something, I can be power, kind of take back the power that was taken from her, and she meets up with kicks some ass. Obviously, she's not really used to everything, the grappling hook thing, and she's just swinging. I love that she was upside down like boo and then got dragged down. She's like, yeah, that didn't work the way I thought it would. She kind of latched onto it pretty quickly. Like we end up learning so she's trained in martial arts because she actually, I guess like maybe she previously had worked in a dojo because her parole officer was like, oh, get work at a dojo or whatever. But also like, it's like her accidentally shooting a batarang at that dude. And he's like, you just shot me. She's like, oops, sorry, my bad. But whatever, it's like, figuring everything out because obviously the suit's kind of enigma, And I think it's, obviously at the same time, everyone else is trying to figure out, what happened to Kate. And that's going to be I think they talked about one of the big mysteries of this season is finding out what happened to Kate. I was actually really surprised when we had Mary and Luke actually run into Ryan and, her saying like, and I thought that was an interesting storyline element of making it that each group had preconceived notions. Ryan has preconceived notions about the previous person in the suit. It's like, oh, it's Kate Kane. Like, you come from a really privileged and well-off family. So for her, she kind of looked down on Kate while they looked down on her because it's like, you're not Kate. Like, who are you to take this? Like, wear the bat suit. Like, Kate was a hero. And it's like, yeah, but I need this suit because I need to get my revenge. And I thought it was neat to like cut back and forth as like Mary's learning more about Ryan's learning more about Kate, realizing like, oh wow, Kate actually did, obviously she did a lot as not just as Batwoman, but also as Kate K, kind of learning about obviously like her getting dishonorably discharged for the military for being gay, and kind of like her opening up that place for people to find their family, and for Ryan, it's like not only was Kate a hero in the suit, so was she one outside, and because Ryan feels like she is like, who am I to? I definitely can't wear this suit because like I'm not. Because when she was under the impression like, oh, like Kate's just some spoiled brat. I'm sure most people would have that same preconceived notion if they found out Bruce Wayne was Batman. But it's that thing of not knowing. In her case, she doesn't know all the struggles that Kate went through, but now she was kind of slowly learning. And for her, it's like, she's like, who am I can't be a hero. I couldn't even save my own mom, So, like, the parallels between everyone. Obviously, Kate lost her mom and lost her sister. Granted, her sister's back into life, but that's a complicated thing. Bruce lost both of his parents, I mean, it's the tragedy that is, Gotham City in general, I mean, to be fair, I think everyone who's part of the Bat family is kind of, suffered tragedies in their own right, But circling back to that point I was bringing up earlier about it being interesting that it was Alice's gang that was responsible for her mom's death. The moment Mary's like having her mom die in her arms, I was like, when that information got presented, it didn't even cross my mind until Mary said that. I was like, right, you had your mom died because of Alice. So it's like this commonality between Mary and, that pain of losing a parent, to have a parent die in your arms, like feeling powerless to not be able to do anything for it, and, wanting revenge. Like, Mary understands that more so than anything. So I think that could be some common ground her and Ryan kind of hit it on, kind of bond over it. Not necessarily bond, but like there's that common ground amongst them, Hell, even Luke can understand that. Obviously, what happened to his dad and everything. But for Luke, the whole situation just makes him feel hopeless about it, that, Kate's not alive because it's like she doesn't have the suit. Because obviously those are whole questions too, for the suit to pop up and she not be with it. Because obviously they couldn't get in contact with her the entire time. So for him, he blames himself. It's like he's the one that was adamant about, hey, we need to destroy this kryptonite so it can be used against you. And so he's the one that pushed her to like go have that trip. He blames himself. He's like, I'm the reason why she was on the plane. And obviously Mary is like, take all that, Kate would tell you to take all that and kind of basically put it towards doing some good, rather than kind of beating yourself up about all of this. Because I think everyone's kind of, because obviously Sophie, because how she, where her and Kate stand, granted there's a whole her and Julia thing, so that complicates things a little bit more. I mean, even for Julia, it's like, not only are they, exes, there's also family there, because obviously like the ties between the Pennyworths and the Waynes, but also you have Jacob, who's, for him, it's like, it's, you know, and him and Mary had to talk about this where it's like, it's almost happening all over again. But for Jacob, he's like, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I gave up on Beth and I should have. I'm not going to give up on Kate. I'm going to keep looking. Even when everyone else is telling me like, we're most likely looking for a body now. It's like, I'm not going to stop until I find my daughter. And I thought it was interesting with the whole Luke and Bruce thing because for, you know, it's like, oh, I'm so happy to have you back, you know, because I think for Luke, it's like, you know, they bring it up later. I thought was interesting was like, Luke didn't see through Tommy's ruse and stuff because he was so happy to have Bruce back. It's like, I don't know where you've been these past 4 years, but hey, you're back. That's awesome. That's great. But more so than anything, it's like, we need you now more than ever, especially now that Kate's gone. Maybe you can help us find Kate. He was so desperate for finding Kate that he was like, Bruce is back. That's all that matters. So he can help us find Kate. And so he didn't see through it like Julia did because she brings up like, wait, Eagle, like the nickname, like a code name or nickname that was given to her dad. And it's like, he doesn't even know where my dad lives. So that's not Bruce. Even ran the prince and found out it was Tommy. God give props to Tommy. Because I almost didn't expect him to know, like, oh, Julia? It's like, oh, I guess maybe because, you know, Alice filled him in on a lot of that. Well, I'm sure, well, he's already well-versed in Bruce. He's obsessed with Bruce, so that's how he knows a lot of details that he does. So I'm sure he knows all their, I mean, because him and Bruce at one point in time were best friends. Obviously, that relationship soured over the years, but at one point in time, they were best friends. And maybe that obsession with Bruce always existed. Maybe it just got even more and more distorted over the course of, you know, them getting older. But so I guess that's one way he could know about, you know, Julia, or maybe just another, well, to be fair, they've actually crossed paths before. So obviously he would know Julia because I was like, I mean, in retrospect now, I'm looking back on it. It's like, yeah, all the information that was presented to you was stuff you crossed paths with them as when you were, Tommy or Hush, you know, so it's not like, you know, so that's what kind of caught me off guard. But still, he knew enough about Bruce's life, especially later on when he finds a Batmobile, which it was interesting. I guess once again, it's like, oh, he knows, like, you know, all of Bruce's like tricks of like, oh yeah, like Bruce likes to keep stuff hidden, so he just blew open walls in the Batcave until he found the Batmobile, which I even love. Luke was like, honestly, till like 10 minutes ago, I didn't even know that was in here. Obviously, every time you see the Batmobile, it's literally different. I think this is so interesting because this version of the Batmobile kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of like Matt Reeves' Batmobile a little bit. Granted, his is more leaning into, I'm not a car dude, so I wouldn't know. But like, I think his leans more towards a muscle car, and I don't think I consider this more like a sports car. It actually kind of reminds me a lot of the one from the Telltale Batman video game. Like the Batmobile is kind of similar. It's kind of more closer to that Batmobile in that regard. But it was also interesting to know what Alice's master plan was. Her plan was to basically set up a situation. She is like, I never said I was going to kill Kate myself. I wanted her dead. She was going to concoct this whole plan to basically her ultimate revenge against her dad and her sister. She wanted her sister dead, sure, by having their dad, like, set up a situation where, like, daddy gets the kryptonite bullet and ends up shooting and killing Kate. Then when he unmasks her, oh my God, I killed my daughter. And it's like, you know, for her, that would have been the ultimate revenge. And, like, Alice is getting drunk because I guess for her, like, in her own twisted way, she doesn't want to admit she doesn't want Kate dead. She had all this bravado. She was setting all this stuff up, but I don't think she actually wanted Kate dead. Just like Kate could never kill her, she could never kill Kate either. That's what I think. Or maybe she is so demented that she's like, no, like, this was supposed to be my moment. Which, I mean, I think, once again, you could see parallels between Bruce's relation, like Bruce and Joker's relationship, as you can with Alice and Kate's relationship to a certain extent, because it's like, no, it's supposed to be my grand design of what I was going to do, and now it's all messed up, and now I'm getting drunk and depressed. But it's also the angle of, it's also like, that was your twin sister, you were, you're still sad to know that she's gone, you know? Because when she would, like, but that's the thing. It could simply be, hey, I wanted my revenge and I can't get it. That's what frustrates me. Or maybe the combination of the two in itself is frustrating because she has such mixed feelings. Because it's like, I want revenge, but also I don't want you dead. I want to be the one to do it, but even then, would I have actually done it when the time came? Who knows? I also love Tommy's motivations for all this. He wants the bat suit because he's like, now I get to be Bruce Wayne. He's been obsessed with Bruce forever. So now it's like, I get to be him. And if I get the bat suit, I get to be Batman, which is so twisted and weird and crazy. That, I mean, who doesn't want to be Batman? But for you to be like, oh, I want to be Batman, that's your main motivation for doing all this. Because you're not really, it's like, oh, Kate's been taken care of. I've held up my end of the deal. I'm going to keep this face. I'm going to keep living life as Bruce Wayne. But he wanted the bat suit and everything. Obviously, he came after her with the Batmobile and everything. And I even love Mary being like, okay, here's something I've never said before. Can you hack the Batmobile? It's like, that sentence. Oh, God. That sentence probably happened at least once or twice between Bruce, Alfred, and Lucius. Maybe at some point. I doubt it happened with Luke, because Luke's like, honestly, I didn't even know it was here. I don't know if they ever specified at what point in time, well, when his dad died. I don't remember the year time frame of but when did Luke specifically start working with Bruce? Was it like right after his dad died? Like, how long was he working with Bruce? I don't remember them really specifying that in season 1. Maybe they did and I'm just not remembering, but luckily, it all worked out, even though she got shot with a kryptonite bullet. I was like, oh, she's still alive. I was like, huh. I was like, was it a fake kryptonite bullet? I was like, no, it seemed pretty legit and everything. So it's like, why is she... I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, but then, like, he ends up destroying a plant that, like, I think it was a reminder of her mom. Because it's one of the things her and her mom moved into their place with. So it was a reminder of her mom. And he broke it, and she's like, no. And she kind of got some of that bat rage out. She was just like punching him in the damn face. I'm like, yeah, kind of everyone who picks up the bat mantle kind of has anger issues. I mean, to be fair, like that deep-seated rage that exists inside of you. So she's just like punching him to the point that the face slides off, and no more pretending to be Bruce, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, wow, that storyline has already been gone and dealt with, so no more pretending to be Bruce. But it does set up an interesting thing. We have gone through the trouble of setting up Earth Prime's Bruce Wayne. So with Kate missing, this could be an opportunity to bring Bruce in. It might not be it probably won't be a permanent thing, but it might be a thing of, hey, let me meet the new Batwoman, the new team that's looking after Gotham. Maybe, I don't know, because you'd also probably have to fill in, like, what he's been doing for the, past 4 years, like, why he left Gotham and everything. I mean, there's speculation on why he left, but, to hear from him and what he's been up to. Kate disappearing, knowing what's up in that regard, and maybe that might be enough to bring him back into Gotham just to see what's what, and then he'll disappear. So it probably won't, obviously, I doubt it'd be a permanent thing, but they presented it an opportunity for them to bring him in and it doesn't just apply to Batwoman. It applies to, like, the Arrowverse. You could use him in other regards, especially if he comes back into the picture. But, like I said, I doubt it'd be in any big, impactful... I mean, it could be an impactful way storyline-wise, but I doubt it'd be oh, he comes to steal the show. It's like, no, it's probably like a one-off thing, pop in here and there if they decide to even go down that route. But, yeah, you have Ryan returning the suit because for her, it's like, it's one thing to kind of put it on, but it's another thing to actually be the hero. And for her, it's like, I'm not a hero. Here's the suit back, which Mary was like, hey, luckily, like, all this worked out because Ryan was pretty good. But like for Luke, which I think, and I talked about this when they talked about it at DC Fandom, I thought was so interesting because it took a long time for Luke to see Kate in a certain light. Because for him, it's just like, no, Batman is Bruce. But eventually he grew to recognize Kate being like, as our own hero, as Batwoman. So for him, it's like, no one else is going to wear the suit until we know where Kate is. Kate's Batwoman. No one else is going to take that mantle. Granted, Gotham is now without 2 Cape Crusaders. So it's like, they might not have any choice in that matter. But, some other interesting developments I didn't necessarily see coming, but I think this provides some interesting developments, is for Jacob and Sophie to both now know that Kate was Batwoman. And that causes similar feelings for different reasons. Because, one, for Sophie, it's like, well, they've had their whole, obviously her and Batwoman, and then obviously her and Kate, and obviously that being a complicated thing, because it's like, Sophie's always going to love her because it's the thing of, they had the complicated history of, like, for Sophie, it's like, I didn't stick with you and by you during that whole military situation, I kind of put my life and my career kind of first, and obviously she, I think she's always regretted that, especially with the whole Tyler engagement thing. I'm sure that doesn't make things better. Also, you're dating her ex too, and that's I'm sure that complicates things, but it's like those feelings are always there, and it's the things of like you never saying what you want to say, until it's too late. Like now you don't have the opportunity to say what you want to say, and for her to be like, I love you, and I knew you figured it out eventually, but obviously, keeping this mantle is about protecting the people that are closest to you, And she's like, oh, I knew on some level you probably already knew, so there's that side of it. But then Jacob, Alice tells him on purpose because it's like, no, I want you, because I can't hurt you the way I want to. I can hurt you in this regard to let you know, oh, remember when you set up that situation, every time you went up against Batwoman, you said all these things and you were shooting at her. Literally the last interaction you had was you shooting at her. Realize that you were shooting at your door. He's like, no, if that was true, she would have told me. It's like, really? The father that's rejected her in more ways than one, not just as Batwoman, but rejected her, I mean, that in more ways than one, but that's being another aspect of like, you couldn't accept me. You can't accept Batwoman. So how can I ever see you as accepting me as Batwoman? So it's like, if you don't believe me, turn on a bat signal and see what happens. And he turns it on. It's like, obviously no one's coming, So obviously this is a harsh reality everyone's got to deal with. And Julia's got the complicated thing of like, well, you still in love with Kate, right? So obviously that puts a little bit of a wrinkle in their relationship, but also like, because Sophie's the one that suggested Sophia was the one like targeting her because of Julia. Like maybe the same thing happened with Kate, and it turns out, in fact, that is the case because she sent a message to Alice to be like, now we're even because I've taken care of this for you. But it's like, oh, I'm coming after Sophia now because she took away my grand plan of revenge. So war is coming to Gotham and there's no bat to stand in the way. And obviously the creepy aspect of like, oh, once again, her having the demented mind that she has. Also her sitting there, laying there with her, mouse's dead body. So still keeping that. But then you also have the angle of Ryan, because in my head I have to pause when I say Ryan because I immediately want to say Javicia, the actress who plays Ryan. I just want to say her actual name every time instead of saying Ryan. I want to say Javicia. That's why I kind of have to pause every time I say Ryan. It's probably going to take some me getting used to that, but for her it's like I tried to do the right thing, Mom. Hopefully one day I can be your number one girl again. Because for her, it's like, Mom died giving birth to her. Never knew her dad because he died before she was even born. Then it's like, because she had talked about it, like she's just a number in the system, So, but it's like, I want to go, because I think for her, it's like she wants to try and put her life back on track so that, it's like, Mom, you can be proud. Mama, you can be proud of me, But then she feels the bullet wound, and we see like the kind of infection spreading, and she's like, what's going on there? I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I guess it makes sense because everyone, once the Batsuit thing happened, they were like, wait, you're still alive after getting shot? Because much like everyone else, I was just kind of under the assumption, oh, the bullet's just going to pierce through the suit and just like kill you. Like it's going to leave, like it could just kill you. But it's like, no, the bullet's a kryptonite bullet. So it's you're going to more so die from infection, which makes sense. I mean, that's how Kryptonians are, like kryptonite's literally poison to them, what it does to them. So, that's what I find fascinating about it, though, making it so that it can poison a human being. I thought was so fascinating. Just because of Smallville, we've seen what, kryptonite does to humans. But to be fair, I mean, I'm not well versed in the comics, so I don't know if I think that's a Smallville thing only, like kryptonite giving regular people powers. But maybe in this because I don't think I've ever come across that in any, like, Superman continuity, at least like cartoons and stuff like that. But once again, I don't know the end all be all to everything Superman. So I didn't know it can infect humans like that. Like I said, Smallville makes it so you can get it. Well, wasn't there characters who did get like, meteor infections, like the kryptonite did infect them and made them sick? I think I could be wrong. I don't know. it's interesting, like that's something that's never really been dabbled before. So then see that, like, obviously it is in the process of killing her. Like, you'd have to find a way to kind of stop the spreading or just kind of remove the kryptonite from her body, I guess, before it spreads to her heart, which, you know, where the wound is, that probably doesn't give her a lot of time. But like I said, a great start to the season. I've talked about it in the past, like, you know, when the news originally dropped that obviously Ruby Rose was leaving the role and everything. And I was kind of bummed by that, you know, because I really liked her in the role. And then I was like, all right, so I guess someone else is going. But, you know, then they made the decision not to go down the Kate Kane route, which I made it clear at the beginning, like, my reservations about that, because obviously so much of the story revolves around Kate. But, you know, it's like, you know what? I'm interested to see where they go down with the Ryan Wilder route, and obviously our introduction to her. I like her backstory. I'm very interested to see where the rest of her story goes, especially, you know, with the whole Alice situation, and obviously, you know, Mary kind of understanding how she feels and how that's going to play out. You know, what she can bring to the role of Batwoman. Well, what kind of Batwoman she's going to be, you know, because I'm sure she's going to try, you know, once again, it's that complicated thing of, like, having to follow in the footsteps of your predecessor, you know, because I think I made parallels to that, because, like, Kara kind of went through the same thing, following in her cousin's footsteps. Kate's literally doing the same thing, and now Ryan has to do the same thing, because it's like, oh, she's learned all this stuff about all of the stuff that Kate did, both as Kate Kane as well as Batwoman. So it's like, that's kind of a, you know, especially with her circumstances, it's like that. Those are kind of big shoes to fill, and obviously, you know, Luke having I'm sure he's, you know, obviously going to have his reservations about it. But I'm, you know, like I said, I was kind of hesitant when the news initially came out about it. But I have, you know, gotten to the point, like I said, I am really curious to see, you know, Ryan's story, and obviously continue this mystery of, okay, like, she's not dead, but she has been removed from the equation. I think it is fascinating that they made sure to take Kate, but not the Batsuit. I thought that was so fascinating. I guess they were like, we don't need it. We just need Kate Kane. Or maybe that was kind of the point, they wanted to leave the suit behind for that reason. I don't know. Because they did make a point that, like, they found the pilot's, like, hand in the river, but that was probably just from, like, the crash or whatever. So probably not thinking. But still, like I said, I'm interested to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.